New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And welcome this evening to the other side of the news. This is the good news here on the New Thought Media Network. Each week we highlight the good things that are going on in the world that's not normally covered by the major news outlets. So thank you to our friends at Good News Network for providing the broadcast stories for this evening. So now, here's the good news for this week. Our first story is about a UK ag tech firm that is pioneering bacterial batteries that they hope will allow farmers in the future to collect precise data about soil conditions with computing equipment powered by the soil itself. Designed to be installed and forgotten about, the batteries absorb the power through bioelectrochemical processes that occur within the soil's microbes. Collecting these electrons via a cheap array of electrodes, the idea is that the resulting power can be used to run sensors and computers that help farmers monitor moisture content and other key markers to maximize yield. The firm is called Bactery, of all things, and their bacteria-powered batteries built on soil microbial fuel cells that were developed in 2019 to power a water filtration system in Brazil. Isn't that interesting? Our next story tugs at the heartstrings here. A UK boy has brain implant fitted to control epilepsy seizures in the world's first time that they've ever done this. For 13 years, this young man has suffered from treatment-resistant epilepsy, but thanks to a cutting-edge brain implant, he's now able to look forward to days without seizures. Oran Knowlson is the first person in the world to receive this implant. It's a part of a human trial pilot study on treating this very specific syndrome, which is a rare form of epilepsy that can result in as many as 100 seizures a day. The 13-year-old from Somerset, England, needed around-the-clock attention and care since the age of 3, as some of the seizures were so strong that they would stop his heart and require him to be resuscitated. After the brain implant, though, his mother declared to The Guardian, which is a newspaper over in UK, "I definitely now have a teenager," remarking on Oren's newfound ability to ignore his mother. "The future looks hopeful, which I wouldn't have dreamt of saying 6 months ago." Again, all the good things that are happening in medicine. Talking about using technology here, the Southern Sudan epic effort to protect the world's little-known largest mammal migration. Antelope migration across the southern Sudan in the dry season is the greatest conservation opportunity on the planet. And in a story that truly demonstrates how much left there is to explore the world's largest migration of land mammals is now understood to take place in the southern Sudan, and the government, with the help of African parks, is rushing to protect it. Ecologists have long known that the migration through the southern Sudan no man's land existed, but they really did not understand how it worked or the scope of it. Unlike the caribou migrations across Canada or the wildebeest migrations in Kenya, no man's land is filled with all manner of migrating species that all are antelope species, including the Mangala gazelle. Believing that the protection of these migration routes and 6 million animals that they play host to are the most significant opportunities for conservation anywhere on Earth, African parks and the government of the Republic of South Sudan signed a 10-year agreement for the management of the no man's land, currently located within the Bama National Park and Bangdingalo National Park, which totals 12,700 square miles, or 4 times the size of Yellowstone. The 20-year-old civil war between what is now Sudan and southern Sudan seems, according to the African parks, to have steered clear of this massive area. Next on the good news, after a brief break, we will be talking about a pioneering zero emissions hydrogen fuel cell that powers a ship successfully that was tested in Japan recently. More good news coming after this here on the New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
The New Thought Men's Community proudly presents New Thought Men's Summit, Foundations, an online conference, September 22nd through 27th. Register today at www.newthoughtmens.community, featuring 22 New Thought speakers, ministers, and visionaries, sharing their wisdom of modern spiritual masculinity. New Thought Men's Community, empowering wholeness, centered in spiritual living.
Again, good evening to every one of you. This is the good news here on Positively Inspiring New Thought Media Network. I'm Reverend Michael Mangus, and I'm subbing in for Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski this evening, and we are taking a look at the good news from this past week. A pioneering zero-emissions hydrogen fuel cell powered ship successfully was tested in Japan. A consortium of Japanese firms have conducted successfully a demonstration of the first ever zero emission ship above 20 gross tons. Sailing over 30 kilometers in Japan, the Hananaria was powered entirely by hydrogen fuel cells. As an island nation, 10.25 million tons of carbon emissions from Japan's transportation sector came from coastal shipping and also transport. In 2015, their former prime minister outlined a carbon neutrality by 2050 plan as a major component of Japan's development strategy in line with the Paris Climate Agreement, and major steps need to be taken to achieve that. The Nippon Foundation, which is a research and development fund dedicated to passing the riches of the sea intact to future generations, worked in tandem with manufacturers and shipping operators to develop a suite of hydrogen-powered zero-emission vessels for the use in the shipping and coastal transport. Here's another one that touches the heartstrings here. A kindergarten student brings audience to tears remembering late mom and graduation speech. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when young Jackson Carter delivered a speech as he graduated from kindergarten, dedicating his hard work, good grades, and spelling bee victory to his deceased mother. The 6-year-old lost his beautiful mommy, Taryn Gainey, in an apartment fire in 2022 and was enrolled in a STEMS-focused public kindergarten just 2 months later. Everything was new. Life had taken an unhappy aspect of novelty. The school was new, and there were even new faces, new rules, and new concepts to take on. However, Jackson conquered it all as he neared the end of his time at the New Dawn Academy. The boy asked if he could deliver a short speech at the Academy's kindergarten graduation ceremony. According to Justin Carter, who is Jackson's father, he worked on the speech with his grandmother in secret, and when the day of the ceremony arrived, it had turned into a full valedictorian speech. When I started kindergarten at New Dawn Academy in August 2022, I was a little 5-year-old who had lost my beautiful mother a month before, Jackson said, taking a long breath after delivering that line. I learned to play with other kids, read books, answer or ask questions like how or why, use correct grammar, and use my school tablet. I think he's talking about the electronic tablet. My kindergarten year helped me grow braver, smarter, kind-hearted, and more grateful. And he went on to thank his father, his teachers, and his grandparents. I dedicate my speech, good grades, all my school awards, and my kindergarten graduation to my beautiful mommy, who I will always love and miss so very much. He said, I know she will always be with me in my heart. The speech blew away all who heard it, and there was thunderous applause followed closely after. How wonderful, the wisdom of babes. So here's another graduation that's in the good news. When a 5-year-old missed his graduation, plane passengers gave a special mid-air ceremony. So Frontier Airlines recently had a special guest on their flight from Florida to Puerto Rico, 5-year-old Xavier Rivas, who was preparing to graduate from kindergarten. But because the graduation at his school was taking place while young Xavier was 35,000 feet above sea level, Frontier attendants stepped in to give him a special ceremony. Calling his name on the intercom, they invited all the passengers to offer congratulations as Xavier walked down the aisle in a red cap and gown. He is missing his graduation, his kindergarten graduation today, and because he chose to fly Frontier instead, we are going to give him a graduation ceremony on this flight. Passengers were recording the special moment, and many offered high fives to the little guy, whose special day included a visit to the cockpit to meet the pilots and also some small presents as well. He was just beyond excited. Like his face lit up, Xavier's mom said and told Good Morning America. He was super excited, getting high fives from people and getting cheered on. Just another part of the good news that's here on the New Thought Media Network this week. No, it's not all bad news. Well, next, we will come back and talk about a woman discovers at a thrift store a vase that she bought for $4 is made by ancient Mayans, and she volunteers to give it back. More on the good news next, here on the New Thought Media Network.
You're invited to join us for the Convention of the Americas. Your light is my light. Come experience a bilingual international meeting of New Thought leaders on the beautiful shores of Lake Chapala, Jalisco, Mexico. With keynote speakers, Reverend Dr. Sonny Cantrell Smith, Reverend Jeffrey Ryan, and Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis. Join us August 6th through the 10th, Lake Chapala, Mexico. Learn more at conventionoftheamericas.com and register today. Your light is my light.
And we're back with more good news here on the New Thought Media Network. A woman discovers a thrift store vase that she bought for a whole $4 is made by ancient Mayans, and she volunteers to give it back. Now, anything could have happened to a vase as it sat on the shelf at Annie Lee Dozier's Washington, D.C. home. A cat or a dog or any one of her three boys could have elbowed it onto the floor while roughhousing it. And instead, it ended up at Mexico's National Museum of Anthropology and History. The thrift store vase, which was actually made by Mayan potters over 1,200 years ago, would have been lost forever. So let's back up the story here. It began in 2019 when Dozier, who worked in Latin America for a human rights advocacy group, saw a decorative and old vase on the clearance shelf at the 2A thrift store in Clinton, Maryland. Considering that it would be a nice thing to remind her of Mexico, and with a price tag of just $4, there was no reason to pass it by. Dozier thought that the vase might have been decades old, but after a visit to Mexico City 5 years later, she noticed that the vase at the National Museum was strikingly similar to the one that she had on her mantle at home, so much so that she asked a museum official. So the official recommended that she contact the embassy in Washington on her return, which she did. After examining the pictures, the embassy wrote back, "I got an email saying, 'Congratulations, it is real, and we would like it back.'" Mexican's ambassador to the U.S. estimates that the vase dates to between the 2nd and 8th century CE, Common Era, dating to the classical Mayan period when the civilization was at its zenith. Dozier said it's really important to recognize that some of these things, especially with such historical and cultural value to an entire country and people, you really can't put a number on it. She added that the feeling of playing a part in a nation's cultural history was worth more than any amount that she could have gotten at auction. And this was a good news story that was on one of our shows this week on the New Thought Media Network, Rockin' the Love, during their good news portion. Fishermen pull off dramatic rescue of 38 dogs treading water with no shore in sight. What started out as a nice weekend fishing trip turned into a massive rescue operation for two colleagues at State Farm Insurance for a pack of hunting dogs that almost drowned in a Mississippi lake. Bob Geist, who was 61, and his friend had hired a local bass fishing guide by the name of Jordan to take them out on Granada Lake. And after a morning without much action, they decided to change spots. And that's when they heard the barking. Casting their lines, the pair, along with the friend, which is Brad Carlisle, deducted that some of the hounds had chased a deer into the lake, which was paddling along at a good clip, with the dogs unable to keep pace. Eventually, the guide noticed that the dogs were still there, treading water and barking, and asked Geist if he could take time out of the fishing trip to investigate. When their bass boat arrived on the scene, it was pandemonium. 38 dogs struggling to stay afloat. We were just flabbergasted because it was dogs everywhere, and they're all going in different directions because they no longer can see the bank on either side. So the three men knew for sure that they were hunting dogs because they had large GPS collars on, which provided a good grip for hauling the soaking wet dogs out of the lake and into the boat. They needed to make 3 trips to get them all in, bringing in the first haul of a dozen hounds to the shore where their anxious owners rejoiced in relief. Traumatized by the event, the dogs were afraid to disembark, believing everything beyond the confines of the boat to be watered. In the end, this is the good news, none of the dogs drowned. Well, how wonderful to interrupt your fishing trip to help save some canines who were in trouble. How great. And this is a story that interested me because I like to tinker around with things. 580 repair shops form a Flourishing subculture, fixing toasters, electronics, coffee makers, and lamps. This is from the United Kingdom. Despite the UK's being the world's second largest generator of electronic waste per capita, a flourishing subculture of repair cafes and other social groups is helping to balance out the island's wasteful side. A featured story from The Guardian, that's the paper in the United Kingdom, reports that such 580 such repair cafes are hosting regular events where volunteers fix and tinkers, and they spend several hours sitting with people to troubleshoot, diagnose, and repair a litany of household items. Author Sally Howard interviewed over a half dozen participants and organizers and found the benefits to be legion, helping out old people stay involved in the community, helping undegradable waste out of the landfills, keeping carbon out of the atmosphere, disseminating knowledge on repairing electronics, keeping old skills like tailoring and cobbling alive, and even combating loneliness. From the Restart Project, it says that we conducted a study at the recycling centers and found that half of the electricals being thrown away could have been reused, needing only minor repairs. Restart parties are about enabling communities to learn how to fix things for free, keeping items in circulation for longer, and lowering our negative impact on the planet. They have a fun and collaborative spirit where everyone is welcome to learn new skills and to meet new people. The Restart Project is one entity playing a big role, especially in London, where they have an objective to put a repair cafe in every neighborhood, in every borough. And it took them 6 months to find a partner and location that could be accessible to the people of London. Finally, here on the New Thought Media Network, and now the good news, we will focus our hero of the week following these words.
People of African Descent New Thought Group are pleased to present Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change at Unity Village, Thursday, August 1st through Sunday, August 4th. There are wonderful keynote speakers such as Lucien Baker, Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Bishop Jack Bomar, Dr. Tracy Brown, Reverend Dr. Andriette Earl, Reverend Dr. Deborah Johnson, Reverend Charlene Manuel, Reverend Dr. Sheila McKeithen, and Reverend Dr. Derek B. Wells. Regular registration ends June 30th, so don't delay. Register today at padntg.com. Sponsorship opportunities are available at padntg.com. Volunteer opportunities are available at padntg.com. Go there now, padntg.com. See you there.
And you are watching the good news here on your New Thought Media Network. I am Reverend Michael, subbing in this week for Reverend Dr. Robert. And finally, it's time for our New Thought Media Network Hero of the Week. And this is such a wonderful story. Stanford University 2024 graduation ceremony featured a 105-year-old student completing a master's degree in education 83 years after she started her coursework. How about that? 8 decades ago, her diploma was put on hold in favor of the bounties of a husband and children. But Virginia Hislop finally earned the chance to don a cap and gown and grab that parchment to the applause of her peers. While attending Stanford in 1940, Hislop needed to write a master's thesis in order to achieve a master's degree, a significant challenge during the best of times. Alas, in the midst of the school year, the U.S. entered the Second World War. Her fiancé, George, was called to serve in the military, so they quickly married, and she joined the home front war effort. So after the fighting was finished, Hislop began a long career of educational work, putting the teaching certificates she obtained via her bachelor's degree in education to use by serving on various school boards. She described her career in a nutshell as trying to improve education opportunities for the largest number of people possible. So decades went by, and Hislop eventually learned that the master's thesis requirement had been removed, and there was almost nothing stopping her from visiting a campus and picking up where she left off. So 83 years later in June, she finally did that with their grandkids and great-grandkids looking on. And for a lot of people, the degree is a badge of accomplishment. And it was great to be able to celebrate with someone who cared so much about learning and dedicated her lifetime to other people's learning. And that was said by Stanford's Dean Daniel Schwartz on the occasion of the 105-year-old's graduation. Her son-in-law described her as a woman under whose feet moss does not grow, owing to her active lifestyle of volunteering, voracious reading, and walking around her garden. So congratulations once again to our hero of the week here on the New Thought Media Network, Virginia Hislop. And congratulations for getting your master's degree even after 83 years. And that's all we have time for this week here on the New Thought Media Network. Join us again next week at 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 o'clock Eastern, for another edition of the Good News. On behalf of the New Thought Media Network, this is Reverend Michael, wishing you a very pleasant good night.
The New Thought Men's community proudly presents New Thought Men's Summit, Foundations, an online conference, September 22nd through 27th. Register today at www.newthoughtmens.community, featuring 22 New Thought speakers, ministers, and visionaries, sharing their wisdom of modern spiritual masculinity. New Thought Men's community, empowering wholeness, centered in spiritual living.